Welcome to Daily Work Remote Strategies. Today, our session is on how to find your ideal job. So if you are looking to find your ideal job, would you please start typing into the comments, in how many months would you like to have that job? Is it in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years? If you are looking for your ideal job, when is that going to happen? And just so you know, the techniques we're using today, they're useful for any kind of thing, including a job or working in sales, those kinds of things. So here's how we go on looking to get your ideal job. First, when you think about getting your ideal job or getting yourself in the correct career direction to move forward, what are the things that you look at? So if we start from the very beginning, here is a 3-step process to finding your ideal job. Now, I'll give you these right from the beginning, what the 3 steps are, but I'll also give it to you as a story so you can meander and walk with us as we talk through this. I have been coaching a lot on finding your ideal job. Before I was an executive coach, which is what I've been doing for the past about 8 years. Before that, I was a career coach. So what a career coach does is literally help people with getting promoted, with moving forward in their work, and those kinds of things. I also have found that even when people are happy with their job, they're still thinking about, how do I move forward with an even more ideal version of my job? And when they're looking at that, they're thinking, what do I want to do in my career moving forward? With that, I've also taught a class about this. As you may know from my background, I went to Harvard undergrad, I went to UPenn for my master's degree in positive psychology, and then I went to Stanford for my PhD in organizational behavior. Now, after all of those, I needed to find a job, and my colleagues needed to find a job. And so I went forward in this direction of career coaching. But then I also, at Stanford Continuing Studies, I taught a class on how to get promoted. So I care a lot about people moving forward in their career. So even if you get one thing out of today's webinar, here are the 3 steps to finding your ideal job. 1, fun networking. 2, questions. And 3, your stories. And I will also give you this framework in a little bit more of a story. Suppose you are setting off from here to somewhere else. You're going from point A to point B. A lot of coaching is, if you want to go from point A to point B, figure out what point A is like, figure out what point B is like and where is it and how are you going to get there. And that's exactly what you should be doing when you're making a change in your life. Now, my analogy is a little bit different. It's not so much about that goal orientation, which is super important in most things, including this, but it's more about that skill of finding a job and that skill of driving. So here's how I would like you to look at it. Suppose you're in a car and you're about to drive somewhere with a friend. So a friend is sitting right next to you. And you're about to go driving. As you're about to go driving, first of all, you need to, so there are 3 parts. 1 is driving the car and how fluent and fluid are you at driving. 2, asking your friend questions. And 3, telling your friend things. So 1, driving the car. Right now, we're at a time where we haven't gone out driving in a long time, being in coronavirus and just in our homes. So you have to try the car every once in a while. You have to check that the engine is still working. That driving a car muscle, that very basic, will the car start when I go? That's a little bit of the first point of going for a job, which is that practice of working towards a job. The second thing we'll talk about is asking about where the job is or how specifically you're going to find that job. And the third part is about telling about the specific things that you have that are going to contribute to that job. So we're in this car. You and I are in this car. You're the passenger in this car. I'll be the driver for today. And we're going driving. So going driving, let's talk about the job search. We're sort of at a big overall picture. When I used to do career coaching over a decade ago, it was my specialty. It was what I did all the time. The 2 statistics that I heard were, if you are working in a job, you should be spending 15 hours a week on the job search. That's looking at jobs, sending out targeted cover letters, specific resumes. That's talking to people 15 hours a week. If you are not currently working, then the statistic of what you should be spending in order to find a job in the next about 5 to 6 months, it's 35 hours a week. That's a full-time job. So looking for something that is a hobby, or whether you're finding your job for 35 hours a week, that's intense, that's a lot. So whatever you're going to be doing on moving forward towards your career progression, think about it as a part-time thing. So either it's 15 hours a week or 35 hours a week if you have the extra time. And I know this can seem daunting, but I'm just giving you something to look at, which is different than a few minutes a day. Let me contrast that driving to a different driving. So we're still talking about the driving, the setting yourself up for getting a promotion, for moving forward in your career. To set yourself up in this way. And for those of us who just joined, there are 3 things I'm talking about today: networking, asking questions, and telling stories. In this networking component, even though I'm just giving you these 2 anchors of 15 hours a week or 35 hours a week, let me also tell you about a study that I ran when I was in my PhD program. I ran a study of what is better towards finding a job, whether it is working on your job search 15 minutes a day for, I think it was 5 days, but it might have been 7 days, 15 minutes a day for 5 days, or a 3-hour chunk 1 day a week. And it turns out, we asked people to do one of these 2. It turns out that the people who are working 15 minutes a day, let's say 7 days a week, 15 minutes a day, much outperformed the people who did one big chunk in the week, a 3-hour chunk. Now, 3 hours is still more than 15 times 7. It's still more. But it was the fact of speaking that language, getting that fluid and that comfortable with the job search, that you were peeking in at a few things every day. So suppose you're on board with me. Suppose you've bought in and you've said, Senia, I get it, I agree. I'm going to be doing these 3 things: fun networking, asking questions, and telling stories. Suppose you're on board. What will you do in that 15 minutes a day, from 15 minutes to however long you want to spend? The first thing you should do is an outward action. We are all really good at doing inward actions, whether we are introverts or extroverts. It's irrespective of that. An outward action is when you reach out to somebody else. That could be an informational reach out. Oh, I have some questions about this. Could I speak to you? That could be an actual interview. Whatever it is, that could be reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I'm in this field. Do you know somebody else in this field who you think it would be valuable for them to speak with me, or for me to speak with them? Those kinds of things, these small steps, they are the fun networking that I'm talking about. So what is fun networking? Another way of phrasing this is aimless networking. Sometimes by the time people get to networking, it's a little intense and it's a little in depth, and they sort of need their results by the time they get there. Now, I don't know if this is your situation, so let me know if by the time you hear networking, you're kind of, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to see it. Networking can be fun. So one way to speak about networking as fun is about connecting. What is fun connecting? What is aimless connecting that you can do? And what I mean by that is really reaching out to people that pop into your head as someone you want to connect with. If you are doing that, if you're reaching out to people that you want to connect with, you're doing a few things at the same time. One is you're getting that message out there that you are interested in a job or in getting promoted in the next 6 months to 2 years, whatever your time frame is. So you're doing that part of getting the word out there. But you're also having a warmer, more in-depth relationship with these people who they might show you something that you haven't even heard about. And as you're thinking about these small touch-ins with other people, what I call external actions, reaching out to someone, emailing, calling, texting, I want to give you one framework that somebody taught me. Alex Goldfein is the author of this book, Selling Boldly. And I've had a chance to interview Alex on a show before. I really like this book. And on that program, I asked Alex, because he talks a lot about salespeople reaching out to people, especially by phone, by text, less by email, which gets lost. So just reaching out and being human. And I asked Alex, well, what do you do? I mean, do you keep a spreadsheet? If you're a salesperson, do you keep a spreadsheet of 100 people you've reached out to? And Alex said, no, this is a human interaction. You shouldn't really be reaching out more than 1 to 2 a day. I mean, you're really having a discussion with these people. So I would temper what Alex has said, because I kind of like to know things at a glance or see things at a glance. I might say, do write a list or a spreadsheet. Do keep a list of whom you're speaking with. But like Alex, I might say, don't try to make this a, oh, I reached out to someone by email. Try to make this a human connection. You know what this is. You know what I'm talking about. If this is interesting to you, just to close out this topic of networking, you may want to see some of the things that my colleague, Catherine Britton, has been talking about in terms of building a network, and her ideas on building a network by having this specific spreadsheet with 3 columns and moving people along those columns by helping them, by doing something that can help them, like making a connection for them. So let me summarize this big old first category of sitting in the car and getting that driving muscle ready and making sure that the car works, that the engine still works, that you don't need gas. And that's looking at the job situation or your career promotion consistently. You might do 15 minutes a day. You might choose to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but something that's more regular, not once a week, not once a month. So first muscle, networking and incremental external actions. Next step, asking questions. So you might say, Senia, this is really weird. You're telling me about finding my ideal job, and you're saying the next thing is asking questions. What about that part where I rah, 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 and I tell about all about my accomplishments and what I've been doing and how this is helpful to people to work with me? Yes, but that comes after asking questions. So the order of these 3 things is get in the car, make sure your car drives, then ask your friend some questions, and then start telling your friend something. So we've talked about getting in the car and making sure that you're doing some external actions regularly, hopefully daily. It's like getting physical exercise, doing something every day. Now we're at questions. So you're sitting in this car. Let's say you're my passenger. We're sitting in the car together and we're about to go on a road trip. Let's say 3 hours. I should know a few things about you, even though we're friends. I should know, do you like to stop for water breaks? Do you want to make sure we go all the way and then we stop for lunch? Do you want to stop midway for lunch? Do you like to take those little detours that say great view here? How are we going to be going on this drive? Similarly, as you think about your ideal job, please start to ask those questions that are relevant for you. So I'm going to give one specific example of this, which are the 3 questions that I highly recommend you're asking at the beginning of every interview in which you're interviewed. So let's talk about what I've just said. I've said that at the beginning of every interview in which you're interviewed, you are asking 3 questions. Weird, right? You're being interviewed. They want to know about your work experience, but you're asking 3 questions. If you don't end up asking these 3 questions or questions like this, you're shooting in the dark. People are asking you questions and you don't know their context. You don't know what's important for them. And so you don't know how to answer it. So here are 3 questions within this questions category that you can ask at the beginning of an interview. 1, what is your goal over the next 6 months? This is to your hiring manager. What is their most important challenge, most important goal over the next 6 months? You can ask this question with a different time frame, over the next year, over the next 3 months. When I have worked with people who are going for jobs, 6 months seems to be a great period because that's very visible to the manager, to your hiring manager. What does that do if you've just asked somebody, what is your most important goal over the next 6 months? That focuses them on their goals, on their work. And now interviewing you is within that context. It's not about evaluating you, which is important and they'll do that, but it's about seeing how you fit that larger goal. So let's say they've just told you, my most important goal is this, for me, for the department. The next question is, how does this role help you with that goal? I'll say that again. How does this role help you with that goal? You've just been told the most important goal for the next 6 months, and now you're narrowing down and you're getting a little more information about how this specific role can help with going in that direction. And third question, in this role, what are the characteristics of someone who's done really well in this role? So now you're not asking about the tasks, you're not asking about the evaluation of this role, you're asking about what kind of person works best in this role. When your hiring manager has worked with someone who's been great in this role, what characteristics has that person had? So now you're going to get information like big picture or detail oriented or really fast. Whatever those are, Now look what you've just done. You've scoped, here's what should happen in the next 6 months for my manager and for this department. Here's how I can help him or her in that direction. And here are the characteristics that if I have those, if they actually fit, maybe they don't, maybe it's not a good fit, but if I have those, I will be able to help with this department and also with my role within this department. Now you have a structure for the stories that you'll tell. So going back, we have the driving, which is that constant networking and connecting. Then we have the questions that you're going to be asking. Questions over time, but specifically, I've told you 3 questions to ask at the beginning of an interview. And now the stories. So connecting, then asking questions, and now the stories. You may have heard my talk just last week on SARI stories, S-A-R-I. Situation, action, result, interesting thing. Situation, action, result, interesting thing. What I'm going to tell you now as a summary is have 3 to 5 SARI stories ready. Have 3 amazing stories ready and have 2 additional backup. A SARI story is something that explains how you've done something similar. People love to hire people who have done pretty much the same thing. So in your SARI stories, have those examples of, here's what's going on in my company. That's the situation. Here's the action I took when I came in. Here's the result we got, ideally with some numbers, 63% improvement, 20% decrease in cost, X% increase in productivity. So here was the situation. Here's the action I took. Here's the result. And here's something interesting that came out of it. Now the whole company uses the method that I developed, or whatever that interesting thing may be. That's your story. So now you're doing regular connections. You are asking questions at the beginning of your interactions with people so that you both have context and it's centered on what's valuable for that person. And then you're telling stories that fit within what you've just heard is relevant. If you're doing that, then you're going to have fun. You're going to have fun with it. The people who are interacting with you are going to have fun with it. So I'll close with one summary of this analogy. You've gone driving, your car is working. I'm looking out at my car, the engine's working. Your friend, you've asked them, how often do you want to stop for water? Do you want to see the scenic views? And now you start telling your friend. So you tell your friend, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Hey, here's how this is similar to a trip I took 20 years ago. This is what I'm seeing, and here's how it's similar to this. So that's it. Your partner driving analogy to doing the 3 steps towards an ideal job. And as a last comment, I encourage you to have fun with it. What is one thing you can do on connecting, one thing you can do on asking questions, and one thing you can do on creating a story, writing down your story? What's one thing you can do on each of those every day? Thank you for joining me.